I wanted to talk today about how arguments in your relationship are not actually a bad thing, and how actually you can use the conflict you have in a relationship to be able to learn about each other and to grow closer ultimately. So let's first look at, sorry, the wind is making my eyes a little bit watery today. So let's look at the light side and the shadow side of an argument, and as I've been talking about human design today, I'm going to try and bring that into this as well. So the light side of an argument, or the possible benefits, is actually it's an opportunity to see the shadow in someone else, to see their reactive behaviour, and to understand that about them, and to know that they are human and we all have reactive behaviour, and you can see and learn a lot about that person, about how they're reacting and why. It's an opportunity to learn about yourself, because what is triggering you is not necessarily what's happening in that moment. That's triggered you because of something that you've experienced in your past, and you're reacting in the way that you would have reacted as a child, or someone who has experienced some pain in their past, and whatever your partner has done or said at that time has reminded you of that. So it's really an opportunity for deep learning if you can get curious as to, why did that comment hurt me so much, or why did I react like that, or why do I feel this way about that situation. And you can, with curiosity and openness, you can learn about yourself, and then you take the blame away from yourself or your partner. An argument can mirror what's not healed within you. So I speak about this a lot before, because our romantic relationships are often the best mirror for us to learn about ourselves, and they're reflecting back to you what is not healed within you, and once you know that, you can work on it. So ultimately it's an opportunity for growth and compassion, and connection for between you, parts of you, and then with your partner, where you can understand and come from your heart and to find out about them. Okay, well, how come they reacted that way, and be curious about what that meant to them, and that really opens you up for vulnerable conversations and connection. The shadow side is probably what many of us experience, particularly in our first argument with our new partner, or if you're having an argument around a similar theme over and over and over and over again. It's trying to highlight something within both of you that might need to be changed or recognised. And so if you are having the same argument over and over again, it's causing a lot of pain and struggle, you will see the shadow side of the arguments playing out, and that is where you might judge your partner, or you might judge yourself. Your wounded child is active. So we experience conditioning growing up, and how we perceived that we got love and attention from our parents, guardians, people around us. We then look for that love and attention to get our emotional needs met from our partner, and often they can't do that in the way that we need, or we expect, and that triggers that little hurt child part of us, and that comes out in a reactive behaviour, and this will be a pattern that will repeat until we look at it and change it. Often with arguments, we might not like what we see in ourselves or in that other person, and it can be uncomfortable and painful, and ultimately lead to the end of the relationship, or just repeated pain if we're holding on to that relationship, even though we feel like nothing's being healed and there's no growth and connection there anymore. So I'm now going to give you some tips on how you can actually learn and grow from these arguments, so that you can deepen your connection. So when I was saying about your reactive behaviour is going to come out, you will see, depending on particularly where you are open in your chart, you will absorb and amplify if your partner is not open, is defined in that part of his chart. And if you don't understand about human design, I suggest you look into your chart, but you should still get some value from this video, even if you just gloss over that bit. But one of the ways that you can deepen your connection and really learn from these experiences is to own that baggage, own your reaction, own the stuff that's coming off, and take responsibility for that as yours and your experience, not blaming yourself for it, but just owning it and accepting it. be open to being vulnerable with your partner, having those difficult conversations of like, do you know what, I apologise, I think that reaction came from possibly how I've been treated in a past relationship or in the past, and it's not necessarily by you, but your actions did hurt me at that time because of what it meant to me. You know, that's a vulnerable and difficult thing to say to somebody. But what we can learn from vulnerability is that it really, really does allow us to communicate from the heart and deepen connection. And normally when we are open and vulnerable with somebody, it's very, very rarely met with judgment and shame. It's normally met back with vulnerability, compassion, and respect, usually. You can look for the perspective of the other person with curiosity and compassion. This will help you get out of your stuff and just be curious about them, so you can learn about them. How come they reacted that way? How come this has bothered them? Where does that come from? And that will help connect you and help them feel heard, seen and valued as well. Practice and learn to communicate maturely from your heart. And that also means asking for space and time if that's needed. If you can't see anything other than the red mist or the pain, then take a little bit of time out and a check-in and say, you know, I want to sort this out, but I need a little bit of space and I'll come back to you. You know, that's also a very vulnerable and difficult thing to say to somebody, but necessary if that's what you need to be able to process, so that you can then come back and communicate maturely from a wise adult perspective, rather than that wounded child with your partner, and from a place of curiosity, so that you can understand each other, rather than that place of fight or flight. And then learn to represent yourself and your values without blame and shame. So this is super important, because it might be that you're reactive because of something doesn't sit right with you. It's actually knocking up against your values of something that's actually very important to you in a relationship, and ultimately deep down you're not okay with that. And so this is when it's really important to represent yourself, and at an extreme level that might mean that if this isn't going to change, or if this is something that's a value that clashes with your partner's value, then that might be a sign that you need to step away and walk away from the relationship. A good example of this is cheating. So I know for me, I have a value that if David cheats on me, there's nothing that he can say or do that I will find acceptable to keep me in that relationship, because that's a personal value of mine. Now someone else, or he, might have a different value. Now actually I know he doesn't, which is why so far one of the reasons I think we're connecting and working, but if someone has the value of, know that that's okay, open relationships are for me, and there's a mutual agreement and the matching of that value, then that's great. But if you end up with a clash of the values, and it is something that's very important for you, that perhaps, you know, it's not about changing this other person, it's about seeing, can I accept that about you, even though it might not be something that I necessarily agree with, can I accept it, yes or no? And that's when you have to be able to have the courage to represent yourself if it's not something you're okay with, and to step away if that's necessary. So an example of something you might accept is the way that they don't put their clothes away, or, you know, it might be the more minor things that are irritating, but you go, overall, can I accept this package? Is this a big deal, or is it not? You know, and that's where you need to be clear on what you value and what's important to you. And then to be open and honest and represent yourself authentically with that. So on that, if you need help, if you're struggling in a relationship, you're struggling with a particular argument, or you're finding a particular thing is bringing up pain for you and you want my help and support, there's some links below that you can use. You can book a free discovery call with me. Maybe there's some other videos or some of my other content that you might want to check out. So I invite you to do that if that feels good to you, and let me know if this was helpful at all. And thank you for watching, guys. Goodbye.